The fifth call came while I was microwaving her leftover salmon. By the sixth, I had already put her suitcase on the porch. And by the seventh, I was just staring at the lock screen like it was a slot machine, wondering if this round would be her sobbing, screaming, or swearing she can explain everything. But let me rewind exactly 24 minutes. 2:04 a.m. I'm lying on the couch, wrapped in the blanket she never washes, when my phone buzzes. At the gym, flexed biceps, one last exercise. Don't worry, face blowing a kiss. Not still at the gym. Not almost done. Not sorry it's late. At 2 in the damn morning. I stared at the message for 5 full seconds. Then I opened her location. Yes, we have location sharing. Long story. Short version? She made me turn mine on after I missed her cousin's wedding. Her turn came later. And there it was. She wasn't at the gym. She wasn't even close to it. Sunny Glen Motor Lodge. Room 117. I double-checked the address. Refreshed the map. Waited. Refreshed again. Still room 117. So I sent one text. Interesting workout program at a motel. She read it. Didn't reply. Not with words, anyway. That's when the call started. I didn't answer. I watched the pot on the stove boil over, hissing like it understood how I felt. I didn't stop it. Just let it burn. Like the last 5 years of my life apparently had. By the time I stepped outside with her gym bag in one hand and her wedding ring in the other, the 8th call came through. I let it ring. She left a voicemail. I didn't listen. Instead, I walked back inside, locked the door, sat on the floor of the dark kitchen, and opened a new note. Tonight, I finally caught her. I didn't sleep. Not even for a second. I just sat there on the cold kitchen floor, watching the digital clock on the microwave blink every minute like a countdown to detonation. 2:36, 2:41, 2:59. I lost track of how many times I checked her location. Still at the same place. Sunny Glen Motor Lodge. Still not moving. My heart kept hoping she'd leave. That maybe, just maybe, this was a horrible misunderstanding, and she'd get in her car, come home, and walk in with some absurd story about losing a bet or helping a friend. But she didn't leave. She stayed. Long enough to make it very, very clear that this wasn't a quick stop. This wasn't accidental. By 3:17 a.m., the little GPS dot finally started moving. She was on her way home. That's when I got off the floor and began preparing my silence. I didn't want a confrontation. I didn't want yelling. I didn't want explanations, crocodile tears, or that guilt-ridden look she always pulled when she knew she was wrong, but wanted me to comfort her anyway. No, I just wanted her to walk into the silence she created. I wanted her to feel it in her bones. So I turned off every light in the house except for the one in the hallway, dim, yellow, and just sad enough to set the tone. I put her duffel bag neatly by the door, shoes aligned, jacket hung up. I wanted everything to feel perfectly ordinary, perfectly wrong. When her headlights finally swept across the window blinds, I felt something in my chest flutter like a dying bird. I didn't move, just stood behind the couch, arms folded, pretending I wasn't shaking. She opened the front door softly, as if she expected me to be asleep. I didn't say a word. She walked in like a teenager breaking curfew, her keys jingling nervously in her hand, mascara smudged just slightly. She froze when she saw me. "Howard," she whispered. I stayed still. She shut the door behind her like she was afraid the sound might wake the truth. "Okay, just let me explain," she said, taking a half step toward me, like she already knew there was no safe ground left between us. Still, I said nothing. I wasn't. She paused, looked at the floor. It wasn't what it looked like. Ah, there it was. The first cliché. I could practically check it off a bingo card. I tilted my head slightly. That's all I gave her. Not a word. She kept talking like silence was a vacuum she had to fill or suffocate in. Kate is my trainer, I told you about him. He's been helping me with form. And he said the gym was closing early so you went to a motel? I said flatly. Her eyes widened. Caught. I didn't plan that. It just happened. We talked, and, Howard, it's not what you think. You think I believe this is about lunges? I asked, voice brittle. She went quiet, her hands fidgeting at her sides like she wanted to hold something that wasn't there. Maybe her excuses, maybe my trust. I made a mistake, she finally said. No apology. Just a mistake. You forget how much a person's voice changes when they're lying. It stretches too far and yet feels paper thin. And suddenly, I realized that I had no idea how many times I'd already heard that voice over the years without noticing. Still, I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't even ask why. I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, took a sip, and set it down on the counter like this was just any other night. She followed me in. "Howard, please. Please say something. Yell at me. Be mad. Just don't act like I don't exist." That's when I looked at her. "You don't," I said. "Not the version of you I knew." And with that, I walked past her, up the stairs, and closed the bedroom door behind me. I didn't lock it. She didn't try to open it. But I heard her sit on the bottom step of the staircase and cry. For the first time in a long time, I didn't rush to make it better. And for once, the silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like freedom. She cried herself to sleep on the stairs. I know that because I heard the quiet shift, the sniffles fading into a shallow, exhausted breath, the way her foot stopped tapping against the wood. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt hollow, like the fight had gone out of me before it even began. I waited another hour, just to be sure, just to be petty, just to prove to myself that she wasn't getting the benefit of doubt anymore. At 4:52 a.m., I came down the stairs and saw her curled up in a position that made her look so small, like someone who forgot how to be human for a while. Her phone was still clutched in her hand like a lifeline she didn't want to lose. I gently slid it from her fingers. Her thumbprint unlocked it on the second try. I didn't go straight to the messages. I didn't have to. The first thing I saw was a folder in her Photos app named Wellness Notes. Cute. Creative. Like she was tracking her macronutrients. Instead, it was full of mirror selfies, hotel bathroom counters, workout bras, thong peaks, and a few too many shots with that same smug jawline hovering in the background. Him. Kate. I scrolled. Too many images. Way too many for this to be new. Then I hit the screen recording folder. Videos. And suddenly, I felt like a man discovering his own obituary. I didn't play them. Not right away. I couldn't. My hands were trembling too badly. I backed out, opened her texts. Not even hidden under a fake name. Just Cade Collision. His last message was from earlier that day. Same room as last time. Got the protein shake you like. No shame. No code. Just routine. Like they'd done this 100 times. And from her. Perfect. Be there after the cool down. Howard still thinks I'm at Zumba LOL. Zumba. She had told me she was going to Zumba. She even printed out a class schedule and taped it to the fridge last week. That wasn't just cheating. That was premeditated manipulation. That was layers. That was scaffolding. That was a performance I didn't even know I was sitting front row for. I kept scrolling, past memes, shirtless mirror shots he sent her, jokes about how clueless husbands are, to one message that made my stomach drop further than I thought it could. You ever think about telling him? Just blowing it all up? Nah, he'd fall apart. And I still need him for bills. Just until the lease is up. That was sent a month ago. A full month where she kissed me goodbye every morning knowing exactly how disposable she believed I was. I dropped the phone. Literally. It slipped from my hand and landed on the tile with a dull clack. She stirred. I grabbed it and went upstairs quickly. Locked the door this time. Sat on the bed in the dark. Stared at nothing. For 40 minutes, I thought about sending the screenshots to her mom, her friends, her boss. I even typed out a long message to Cade's gym manager. But I stopped. Because revenge, at that hour, felt small. I didn't want them to know how wrecked I was. Not yet. I wanted them to be confused when I smiled. I wanted them to wonder how much I'd found out and how long I'd known. That night, I didn't sleep. Again. But I made a plan. It started with an email to a lawyer I never thought I'd need. And ended with a simple message to my own phone. Get out before she decides you're no longer useful. I'd been played. But the game wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I don't think I blinked for hours. Just sat there in the dark like a man waiting to hear the verdict he already knew was coming. My phone buzzed once, a spam text from some delivery app. The silence after felt almost mocking. At 6:12 a.m., I heard the stairs creak. Then the soft padding of her feet moving through the hallway. I didn't move. Just listened. The bathroom door creaked open. Water ran. Then quiet again. She didn't knock on the bedroom door. Didn't ask to come in. That said everything. By 6:40, she pushed the door open anyway, slowly, like a kid sneaking into a room they were told not to enter. I was already dressed. Sitting on the edge of the bed, fully awake. Fully done. She paused when she saw me. Hey, she said, her voice thick with fake morning rasp, the kind people use when they want to sound softer, more innocent. Didn't sleep? No, I said plainly. She took a tentative step inside. I didn't mean to crash on the stairs. I don't know what to say. Don't worry, I said, standing up. You don't need to. That's when she saw it. The phone. Her phone. Sitting on the nightstand. Face up. Still unlocked. Message thread with Cade wide open like a confession written in neon. She froze. Completely still. Like a rabbit spotting a wolf, but unsure if it's already too late to run. I didn't say a word. Just looked at her. She blinked fast. Once. Twice. Then went full damage control. Okay, I know how this looks, she started, stepping forward with her palms raised like she was about to defuse a bomb. I was going to tell you, I didn't know how. It wasn't planned. It started slow. You were calling me an idiot in your messages, I said calmly, like I was reciting weather statistics. Howard, no, I never said you were. You said I was useful. For bills. Until the lease ends. She paled. I watched her brain scramble to spin it, to soften it, to twist it into something she could mold into less than it really was. But there was nothing to soften. No angle left untouched. I'd read the whole damn file. And now she knew it. Then I nodded toward the dresser. Your ring is in the top drawer. I figured you'd rather take it off than have it thrown. She flinched, then looked away. There was a long silence, the kind that feels sticky and wet and unbearable. She took a shaky breath. Can we please talk about this before we go nuclear? Just not now. I have that morning class, and I actually laughed. It was short, bitter, almost surprised me. You're going to go coach people on emotional resilience after sneaking out of a motel and lying to my face? I have to work, she snapped, some of her real self slipping through now. I can't afford to fall apart today. No, I said, walking past her. But you'll feel it tomorrow. She turned as I opened the door. Where are you going? To be somewhere you're not, I answered without looking back. And I meant it, because I wasn't going to let her keep occupying the air around me. I wasn't going to sit in the shadow of a woman who decided I was worth less than her gym crush with a protein shake fetish. I went straight to the bank. It was 7:23 a.m. when I pulled into the parking lot. First in line. The teller recognized me. Howard, you're early. Yeah, I said. I want to open a new checking account. She smiled. For what purpose? Fresh start, I said. Personal use only. Just me. She nodded. Got it. In less than 30 minutes, I had moved my paycheck deposit, pulled half of our joint account into a new one, and canceled 2 cards she rarely used but had access to. No drama. No tantrum. Just precision. Then I went to the coffee shop across from her office. Sat there, watching people stroll in and out of their morning routines, wondering how many of them were living quiet lives of betrayal, like me. Wondering how many were smiling through secret texts. I didn't confront her again that day. I didn't answer her calls. I didn't reply to her apology email titled, "Let's be adults about this." No, I let her feel the silence again. This time not out of hurt, but out of control. Because this wasn't her story anymore. It was mine now. And I wasn't going to waste another second pretending I didn't see the ending. I didn't plan to go. I swear I didn't. I sat in my car for almost 15 minutes across the street from the wellness studio, sipping a lukewarm coffee and watching people file into the building like disciples attending some pseudo-spiritual sermon. Most of them had yoga mats slung over their backs like weapons. One of them wore a tank top that said "Sweat now, shine later." It made me laugh, bitterly. Because I knew the woman behind that door, the one giving them all their motivational mantras, had been sweating with someone else in a motel room less than 24 hours ago. And yet, I still wanted to see her. Not talk. Not fight. Just see. So I walked in. Didn't say my name. Didn't check in. Just grabbed one of the folded towels from the stack near the door and walked straight into the back row of the class. The lights were low. Some kind of incense burned near the front. And there she was, Lacey, standing barefoot on her mat, a wireless headset already wrapped around her face like she was about to deliver a TED Talk on betrayal. She didn't see me. God, that felt like a power shift I didn't know I needed. She stood tall, calm, all in control. The same woman who'd begged me not to read her text the night before was now telling strangers to breathe through the tension and exhale what no longer serves you. If that wasn't irony, I didn't know what was. I stood at the back and listened to her guide everyone through a series of poses. Warrior, Downward dog. Child's pose. Meanwhile, she said things like, let go of the guilt. It doesn't define you. We all carry things. Not all of them deserve to be carried. You are not your past. You are your next step. She wasn't teaching a fitness class. She was preaching her own confession through other people's bodies. And maybe they didn't know it, but I did. I could see the cracks in her voice. The way she glanced at the door every few minutes. Nervous. The way her hands shook slightly when she fixed her ponytail. She was unraveling, holding it together just enough to keep the mask on. But the most telling part? Near the end of the session, during the guided cool-down, she said something that made the air in the room change entirely. Sometimes, she whispered, kneeling down on her mat, we betray ourselves long before we betray others. There it was, a flash of truth in her sea of curated lies. And then, as if summoned by guilt itself, her phone rang. Loud. Through the Bluetooth speaker. She'd forgotten to disconnect it. The name that lit up across the room? Kate. Every single person turned, looked at the speaker, then at her. Her face went white. The music stopped. The incense choked in the air. One of the older women near the front leaned toward her and asked, that your husband? Lacey scrambled to mute it, but it was too late. The illusion cracked like glass under pressure. She stuttered something about it being a work contact and not important, but no one believed it. Not after that moment. You could feel it. The shift in the room. The trust gone. And me? I slipped out before she noticed I was ever there. I didn't need to confront her. I didn't need a scene. She'd already performed the destruction herself. I got into my car, shut the door quietly, and smiled for the first time in days. Not because I'd hurt her, but because she finally saw what it was like to watch everything you've built, all your branding, your curated persona, your perfect image, fall apart in front of strangers who once looked up to you. And I didn't say a word. Because silence, I was learning, is louder than screaming when used at the right moment. I was in the middle of rerouting a service call for a walk-in freezer when the front desk buzzed me. You have a visitor, Shelley said, her voice unusually tight through the intercom. She's crying. My stomach didn't drop. My heart didn't jump. I felt nothing. Just an exhausted flicker of course she is. Because the silence I'd been giving her, methodical, deliberate, was finally doing what yelling never could. I wiped my hands on a shop towel and walked out to the front lobby. There she was. Lacey, hair pulled back in a sloppy ponytail, still wearing her studio gear. That familiar black zip-up she always wore when she wanted to look composed. Except now it was halfway unzipped, and her eyes were red, puffy, mascara clinging to the edges like it was trying to escape too. When she saw me, she stood. Howard. Her voice cracked before she could get the full word out. Everyone behind the desk was pretending not to watch, but I knew they were. We don't get much drama at a refrigeration service company. A sobbing woman in leggings might as well have been a meteor crashing through the break room. She took a step toward me, like she wanted to reach out. I didn't flinch, but I didn't help her save face either. Can we please talk? She whispered. Somewhere private? I didn't answer right away. Just stared. Let her squirm. Then I nodded, not out of sympathy, but out of curiosity. I led her into the break room. Shut the door behind us. The microwave clock ticked like a metronome in a dead room. She sat. I didn't. I don't know what's happening to me, she said, her voice barely a breath. I messed up. I know. But I didn't think you'd just vanish like that. Cut me off. Freeze me out. I said nothing. Just leaned against the counter. I'm not defending what I did, she continued. I didn't think you'd stop caring. And there it was. That's what broke her. Not the guilt. Not the exposure. Not the end of her lie. It was the absence of my attention. She needed me to react. To yell. To cry. To give her something that said I still mattered. But I wasn't offering that. I wasn't giving her the emotional scaffolding she used to rebuild herself after every mistake. Do you love him? I asked finally. Quiet. Measured. She looked up like I'd slapped her. No. God, no. It wasn't love. It was stupid. I was feeling disconnected. You were always working. We weren't. I don't know, clicking anymore. You mean I wasn't feeding your ego, I said. I wasn't cheering at your brand anymore. She shook her head, but not convincingly. No, that's not fair. Isn't it? I asked, stepping forward. You used my loyalty like a cushion. You danced on the edge of consequence because you assumed I'd never do what I'm doing now. Tears welled again. I don't want to lose you, she whispered. This is our life. Our home. You're still my. I held up my hand. No, I said. I was your home. You just chose to move out long before you packed a single bag. She opened her mouth like she had a counter, some last-ditch script to throw at me. But then, nothing. For once, she had no clever line. No fitness metaphor. No fake breakthrough. Just silence. Then came the part one didn't expect. She reached into her tote bag and pulled out an envelope. It was fat, yellow, labeled with the name of her studio in the top left corner. I know you're leaving, she said, pushing it toward me. But you should see this. I hesitated, took it, opened it slowly. Inside were printed emails. Dozens. Client complaints. Anonymous messages. One of them mentioned inappropriate conduct with a trainer. Another referenced a woman being seen entering a motel with a client in branded gear. Screenshots of a Reddit thread titled, "Wellness Coaches Behaving Badly." And one email. From her employer. Marked urgent. Conduct review pending. She had been reported. Not just for cheating, but for violating professional ethics and dragging the studio's name into it. I'm probably going to lose everything, she said, eyes down. They froze my accounts this morning. And for a second, I felt something. Not pity, not forgiveness, but a strange kind of sorrow, not for her, but for the version of me who would have once tried to fix this for her, who would have made calls, defended her name, burned bridges to protect someone who would have watched me drown. That version of me was gone. I folded the envelope shut. You didn't just cheat, I said. You disrespected everyone who trusted you. And now you want me to hold your hand while the fire you started finally reaches your feet? I want to make things right, she whispered. But I was already walking toward the door. I looked back only once. I'm not your rehab, Lacey. I'm the exit. I didn't leave immediately. That morning, after the confrontation in the break room, I drove aimlessly for 2 hours, radio off, windows down, listening to the sound of my tires humming over Oregon asphalt. The cold November air filled the truck cab like a truth I couldn't shut out anymore. I wasn't just escaping her. I was abandoning the man I had allowed myself to become. Passive, predictable, patient to the point of self-erasure. I didn't recognize myself anymore. So I made the decision somewhere on the outskirts of Bend. I was going to leave town, not forever, but long enough for the silence to become real. Long enough to make it irreversible. I had a buddy, Vince, who ran a small auto garage near Sisters. We talked a few months back about me helping him with some refrigeration installs on old trucks. It wasn't glamorous, but it was work, honest, silent work. I called him. He answered on the third ring and said I could crash in the spare trailer behind his shop. No questions. But before I left, I needed to do one last thing. Not revenge, not closure, just truth. I went home, packed a bag, only essentials, left my wedding ring on the bathroom counter, along with a sticky note that read, "You dropped this long before I did." Then I grabbed an old shoebox from the closet, emptied out the sneakers, and began filling it, not with threats, not with slander, but with reminders. The first thing I put in was a printed screenshot of her motel location, timestamped, with her 2 a.m. message above it. That alone would have been enough. But I wasn't aiming for drama. I wanted reality. So I added more. A copy of her message to Kate about using me for bills. A printed page of the complaint filed by her employer, taken from the envelope she gave me. One of her own photos, from the Wellness Notes album. The one where she's standing in front of the motel mirror in a sports bra, smiling like she's untouchable. And finally, a USB stick. On it, a single-screen recording of the video she kept hidden, her and Cade, not being subtle in that same motel room. I never watched more than 5 seconds of it. That was enough. Enough to know I wasn't crazy. Enough to burn the last bit of hope in my gut. The file wasn't for blackmail. It was a mirror. She needed to see herself fully, without filters, without her followers, without her client praise echo chamber. Just raw consequence. I taped the box shut and drove to her place. She had moved into a short-term rental above her studio after things blew up. A sterile, overpriced one-bedroom with fake plants and white furniture. The kind of place people rent to pretend they're rebuilding. I parked half a block away, walked up the steps slowly, and set the box down on her welcome mat. I didn't ring the bell. Didn't knock. But I did slide a note under the lid. This isn't revenge. This is everything you left me holding. Now it's yours again. Then I turned around and walked away. Not once did I look back. I got into my truck, started the engine, and drove north without checking my phone, without replaying the conversation in my head, without wondering how she'd react. That part didn't matter anymore. I wasn't writing her story anymore. I was finally rewriting mine. I reached Vince's trailer just after dark. It smelled like old oil, bacon, and a lifetime of unspoken disappointments. Felt like home. He handed me a beer and didn't ask a thing. And for the first time in what felt like years, I sat in silence that didn't hurt. I didn't know what tomorrow held, but I knew what I'd left behind, and it was no longer mine to carry. 3 weeks passed. The air up in Sisters, Oregon was colder than I remembered, but cleaner. Mornings were slow, crisp, and silent, broken only by the rattle of wrenches in Vince's garage and the occasional elk bugle in the distance. I spent my days fixing refrigeration units and my nights doing something I hadn't done in years, sleeping deeply. No more 2 a.m. text alerts. No fake fitness classes. No burning need to check her location. I didn't block her number. I didn't need to. The silence between us had become its own border, one she either respected or feared crossing. Until the message came. It was a Tuesday night. I was standing outside the trailer, staring up at the stars with a cup of instant coffee, when my phone buzzed. Just once. Lacey, I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted to say thank you for not becoming the worst version of yourself when I became the worst of mine. I stared at it for a long time. No follow-up. No bait. Just that. And honestly, it hit me harder than any of her excuses ever could. She was right, in a twisted way. She had seen me crumble silently for years, bend myself into shapes to accommodate her career, her needs, her moods. And when she finally shattered the last pieces of us, she expected fire, explosions, rage. But I hadn't given her that. I gave her reflection and walked away. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. That wasn't cruelty. It was peace. 3 days after that message, something changed in me. I stopped checking her social media. I stopped replaying what I could have done differently. I even took off the wedding band tan line from my finger with a little help from the sun and motor oil. And one afternoon, while working on a delivery truck out behind the garage, Vince tossed me a box. "Someone left this for you at the front desk," he said. Inside was a notebook. Old, worn leather. Mine. I had forgotten about it. It was the one I used to write in when I first started dating Lacey, full of scribbled half-poems, grocery lists, plans for the future. She must have found it during the cleanup. I flipped through it slowly, expecting the pages to hurt. But they didn't. They made me smile. Because the person who wrote those pages was still here. Buried, maybe, under years of people-pleasing and self-doubt. But alive. Still capable of dreaming, even if the dreams had changed. That night, I bought myself a brand new notebook. And I didn't title it Us this time. I titled it Me. And I wrote the first line slowly, like a vow. This time, I will not shrink to fit into someone else's life. I don't know what happened to Lacey after that. Maybe she rebuilt. Maybe she spiraled. Maybe she finally learned to be alone with herself. But I do know what happened to me. I started over. Quietly. Without fanfare. Without her. And for the first time in my adult life, that felt like a victory. Not revenge. Not punishment. Just freedom.